Yo, what's up?
Onision. 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 From hurting the Canadian pop star Shiloh.
Please don't hurt me.
Look, okay.
Please don't hurt me.
I'm going to YouTube, watch. Okay, this is you.
To the point of brutally abusing her nearly to
Just know that when they say on the news that I was found, brutally, that it was because of you.
Onision not only exploited Shiloh, a well-known Canadian pop star, but also abused young, minor, and underage girls both in his personal life and those he encountered online. The list of girls is long, and the crimes he has conducted are brutal and unending. Some girls came up and stood tall for themselves like Shiloh, and some just disappeared and the world never heard their names again. He is so damn dangerous that Discovery has covered him as one of the biggest scandals. Onision did serve in the uniformed services and was in the Air Force before he turned into a YouTuber. He's so smart that when Chris Hansen tried to meet him in reference to an interview, he straight away dialed 911. But how was this monster even created? Surely he wasn't born that way. There must have been a turning point, some moment, or perhaps a series of events that shifted his thought process and gave rise to the disturbing version of himself the world would come to know. What happened to the curious child he once was? When did the brilliance begin to warp into manipulation? Onision's real name is Greg. As a child, Greg was undeniably curious, an inquisitive soul with a mind hungry for answers. He wasn't content with the surface-level explanations most children accept. He dug deeper, questioned everything, and seemed to seek meaning in the vast unknown. While other kids played games or chased fleeting interests, Greg explored concepts like the soul, higher beings, and the fabric of existence. His mind was alive with wonder, but somewhere along the line, that wonder took a dark and destructive turn. The never-ending stream of questions and the overwhelming complexities of life began shaping his mind and thought process from a very young age. By the age of 11, he had already started accumulating knowledge on topics like the soul, angels, science, and the nature of reality. However, he lacked the maturity at the time to properly organize or document his thoughts.
Hilarious.
I'm just awake.
I'm Show Gamer. I'm Show TV. I like Pac-Man, Pokemon. I'm So Tetris. I'm So Smallville. Super Mario. Supernatural.
It wasn't until he turned 17 that Greg launched the Seseska website in 2003, a digital space where he began to pour out his thoughts, theories, and evolving worldview. The site encouraged open interaction, allowing visitors to provide feedback and engage with Greg directly. He described Seseska as an amazing system of facts involving human origins, our future, and general existence. Discover the purpose of all life and a new reality beyond the teachings of all others. This description alone showcased not only his intellectual ambition, but also the uniqueness of his mind. Greg was far from an average teenager. While others his age were busy with video games or hanging out with friends, he was immersed in existential questions, philosophical exploration, and self-invented spiritual frameworks. His interests and intensity clearly set him apart. He wasn't just thinking outside the box, he had created an entirely different box of his own. For a young child to develop his own strong belief system, complete with unique terms like Zodin, defined as souls which have never experienced human occupation or given the right to do so, often sociopaths due to their lack of first-hand experience with human emotion, is remarkable. He also coined savant, meaning post-human souls that have experienced the honor of being awarded a human body to dwell in, and devant, described as the unseen realm where both the savants and Zodins reside. The creation and understanding of such complex metaphysical concepts, especially at such a young age, speaks volumes about Greg's intellect and imagination. For a child to not only be aware of, but also to explore and interpret abstract ideas like aliens, angels, and spiritual dimensions is undeniably impressive. This, among many other things, reinforces the notion that Greg, Onision, exhibited brilliance, creative depth, and a sharp intellect from early childhood. Here's another video of Onision talking about life and death, and why are some people suicidal.
So I think being suicidal is either a sign of high intelligence or high emotions. So where like you're just overwhelmed. Emotions for obvious reasons. You're so overtaken by this uncontrollable force that you don't want to live in this world anymore, or intelligence, you realize this is all just meaningless, stupid, pointless. We're born, we grow old, we die. What's the point? Inevitability of death. What does it matter if I die today? Or you get the points. So either way, don't feel bad. If that's possible, it's not your fault.
Everything he said made a lot of sense to a lot of people, further reflecting his intelligence and the clarity with which he views life. His understanding of existence is undeniably different, unconventional even, but he certainly doesn't come across as delusional. On the contrary, he appears to possess a firm belief system and a well-defined perspective. He seems to know exactly what he wants, fully aware of both his actions and their consequences. With a mind seemingly full of insight into human nature and the complexities of living, it's baffling to consider how someone so perceptive could choose such a brutal, toxic, and self-destructive path.
I was only taught about guardian angels briefly as a child, but I always thought it was cool to have this little protector around.
Was it a deep-seated trauma that went unresolved? A craving for control masked by intellect? Or perhaps a dangerous mix of ego, power, and emotional detachment that gradually overpowered his moral compass? The contrast between his apparent wisdom and the dark choices he made raises unsettling questions about the nature of intelligence without empathy, and how brilliance, when untethered from conscience, can turn into a weapon rather than a gift.
Look at all the white people, they're like, thanks Jesus for this food. And it turns out they actually were saying Jesus because he says de nada. Funny fact about Jesus, he's actually born in America, and his mother was born in America, and his mother's mother was born in America, but he just wants to leave out of principle.
Let's dive into the awful and horrifying journey of how Greg transformed into the monster the world came to know as Onision. First and foremost, there's Shiloh.
Hey guys, as I'm sure you know because I'm incredibly famous, and I wanted you to meet my girlfriend, so...
I'm Onision, and I like to wear makeup and skinny jeans.
I am a sad man.
Yeah.
Here she is, everybody.
Yeah, there you go.
There's my girlfriend.
Now show us your
There she is. Say hi.
Did you all notice those devil-like eyes filled with evil intentions? Shiloh never knew what she was signing up for. Shiloh is a rising star, a talented and hard-working Canadian pop singer who had dedicated her life to building a promising career. She earned her place in the spotlight through sheer determination and passion. But over time, her life began to shift. The bright lights dimmed, and her career slowly took a back seat as she became entangled in a terrifying, inescapable cycle, one that would leave deep emotional scars. This wasn't just a relationship gone wrong. It was a descent into psychological torment, manipulation, and abuse. Shiloh didn't fall. She was dragged into a world built on control and fear, all under the influence of someone who used love as a weapon. And tragically, she wasn't the only one. So Shiloh came across Onision's infamous and wildly viral banana video on YouTube, and the very first thought that popped into her head was, Onision is gay. Yes, it's undeniably funny in hindsight, considering how things unfolded later. But what's even more intriguing is how their initial encounter paints a completely different picture from the chaotic journey their relationship eventually took. In the video below, Onision recounts how he and Shiloh first met. It's a seemingly innocent beginning, yet it stands in stark contrast to the disturbing events that followed. Watch closely. There are unsettling details hidden beneath the surface. We'll dive into the more terrifying aspects of their story right after this. According to Onision, it was Shiloh who initiated the conversation between them after being impressed by his speak videos, content she reportedly found interesting, logical, and relatable. However, when we closely examine their body language and interaction in this particular video, the reality feels far from normal. Shiloh appears visibly unfocused. Her giggles feel erratic and disconnected. Now, she doesn't come off as just a bubbly, sleep-deprived partner. there's a strong sense that she is under the influence of something. Her demeanor suggests she's not fully in control of herself, possibly not even fully conscious of her surroundings. What's even more disturbing is Onision's response to Shiloh saying, "I love you." Instead of reciprocating affectionately, he responds with, "I will choke you up." For any average viewer, this is not just inappropriate, it's downright alarming. Making such a statement on camera under the guise of humor or intimacy crosses a deeply unsettling line. Another uncomfortable moment comes from the way Onision hugs Shiloh from behind. While it might seem affectionate at first glance, paired with his overly sweet, almost performative tone, something about it feels off. From Shiloh's body language, it doesn't appear entirely consensual or comfortable. For many viewers, especially women, this visual is not just awkward, but unforgettable in the worst way, particularly because it happens while Shiloh seems to be semi-conscious, more entirely out of it. Another video posted by Onision on his YouTube channel where we can clearly see how unconscious Shiloh is.
Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for supporting this video, supporting me and my channel, and Dracula as well. Definitely a comedy sketch next time. I just gotta figure out my schedule so she can be happy all through the night. Thank you for your love, guys.
Here, as we notice that Shiloh is out of her senses and she is half bald. Yeah, she has shaved her hair. Has she shaved it, or did Onision hold the scissors? Many people who once admired Onision deeply now find themselves torn, unsure whether to continue supporting him or to pause and reevaluate their stance. The actions he's taken, often in the name of gaining views and attention, have raised serious ethical concerns, particularly because they seem to come at the expense of those closest to him. This video serves as undeniable proof of that troubling pattern. It's not just entertainment, it's a disturbing window into behavior that should make any viewer stop and think twice.
Hey guys, for the last few months I've been editing my videos at the last minute, and what that means is I normally edit for 8 to 14 hours through the night, starting at about 10 p.m. Something new happened tonight, and that was because Shiloh was sleeping next to me on my computer. I'll just show you. Here it is.
So these are the points we'll be focusing on. First of all, he takes 10 hours to edit a single video? Insane! Is it a travel vlog or is it an animation video? Now let's take a quick look at Onision's channel. Boy, all you've got on your feed are the banana videos. Let's get to the second and arguably the most important thing here. You are dating a girl who is madly in love with you. A famous pop singer who has put her career on pause just to appear in your crappy videos on your crappy channel. And the best you could do to repay her? Make an entire video highlighting her in a terrible state. Awful and sad. No girl would ever want her boyfriend or partner to record her while she's unconscious. When Shiloh needed Onision the most, what did he do? He pulled out a camera and started filming from multiple angles. As if that wasn't disgusting enough, he went ahead and blamed her for not finishing his editing work for the next video. That's the saddest part of any relationship. And it makes you wonder, was this love or was this content? Was her pain just another opportunity to rack up views? Here is Shiloh lying beside Onision while he's glued to his computer, supposedly editing his upcoming video. Or is he just pretending to work and edit just to make it look like he's busy? Because, let's face it, no one makes behind-the-scenes content about working hard on a project while their girlfriend is unconscious beside them. It's disturbing, no matter how you look at it. And let's not forget, this isn't just some random internet drama. This is a real person, a real relationship, and a real situation being used like it's just another clip in the content machine. At some point you have to ask, where's the line? This performance by Onision surely deserves an Oscar for worst actor in a real-life horror show. The girl beside him, Shiloh, is clearly uncomfortable, anxious, and visibly terrified. Any random person watching this video for the first time would instantly sense that something is terribly wrong, that Shiloh needs immediate help, but not Onision. Now, the most logical response in his mind wasn't to comfort her or call for help. The best thing to do, Sir thought, was to grab a camera and shoot an entire video of her, from different angles no less. Like it was a scene in a movie, not a moment of crisis. That level of detachment isn't just alarming, it's downright chilling.
Shiloh, right here. Hey.
In her sleep, Shiloh would start.
Shiloh. Hey. Shiloh.
Shiloh started to get really upset, and I held her hand, and she wasn't upset anymore. And this went on for some time.
One moment.
What was really cute is when I said hey, she would make this really, really adorable crunch face. Like she would, I'll show you. Check this out.
Just because she makes a cute face when you're holding her hand doesn't mean she's okay. If she's crying the rest of the time, she doesn't need a camera, she needs a doctor. Her pain isn't a moment to be brushed off or romanticized. It's a clear sign that something is seriously wrong. And you, if you really consider yourself a responsible person, should have taken her to the hospital and made sure she got the immediate care she needed. That's what love looks like. That's what basic human decency looks like. Another brutal activity, a video interview of Shiloh conducted by Chris Hansen, where Shiloh confesses herself on camera about how Onision forced her to shave her head.
And so he took me off into the bathroom, and he shaved my head in the tub, and then continued to have sex with me.
That seems controlling, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
Onision took her to the bathroom and forcefully shaved her head all bald and exited with nothing to say or explain. How can someone be that brutal to someone who is madly in love with them? She also said in one of the interviews, "My femaleness feels like it has been stripped from me completely, and shaving off the rest of my hair has made me completely depressed." That is, without a doubt, one of the saddest things to hear. For a young woman in her adulthood, someone who was once wild, free-spirited, ambitious, and full of love to give, to reach a point where she no longer feels like herself, where she feels depressed and disconnected from her very identity, is heartbreaking. And more than that, it's a reflection of our failure, as an audience, as fans, and as a society. We celebrate our favorite artists when they're shining, but too often, we vanish when they're at their lowest. We scroll past the suffering, instead of standing tall behind them when they need us the most. Here's another statement by Shiloh, where she also states about being forced to record videos being bald.
And then he made me do a lot of videos. Well, he tried. I think I only got one of them out. He made me do a lot of videos as bald characters.
Shiloh here says she not only ended her own career by being with Onision and promoted his career, but also ended up being his sidekick. Someone who just helps Onision create, promote, and hype up his own channel and sleeps with him, all submissively. Now, according to the World Health Organization's 2024 analysis, the very first point here states that violence against women, particularly intimate partner violence and violence, is a major public health problem and a violation of women's human rights. Surely in Shiloh's case, she was extremely hurt and harmed by Onision, both physically and mentally. She was abused and disrespected. Second point in this study is, estimates published by WHO indicate that globally about 1 in 3, 30% of women worldwide, have been subjected to either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. Remember, 30% is just the registered cases, and that's where the data comes from. The rest of the cases must not even be filed. Thus, it's a huge number to be overlooked. The next point here says, most of this violence is intimate partner violence. Worldwide, almost 1/3, 27% of women aged 15 to 49 years who have been in a relationship report that they've been subjected to some form of physical and or violence by their intimate partner. To be hurt physically or mentally by someone you love is one of the most devastating experiences a person can endure. When the very person you trust the most, your intimate partner, becomes the source of your pain, it doesn't just sound tragic, it's terrifying. There comes a point where a woman begins to lose faith in men, not because they want to, but because they've failed time and time again. In today's world, there is a powerful wave of feminism. Women are fiercer, stronger, more vocal, and more financially independent than ever before. And yet, when it comes to love, many women still carry a softness, a vulnerability that makes them the most fragile in the hands of someone they trust. When that trust is broken, when a woman is dragged through emotional trauma she doesn't deserve, it doesn't just break her, it chips away at her identity. But here's the silver lining. Many women are rising. They're finding their voices. They're standing up for themselves. They're reclaiming their lives, their power, and their careers with twice the strength they had before. Next point says, violence can negatively affect women's physical, mental, sexual, and reproductive health, and may increase the risk of acquiring HIV in some settings. Here's a song that says, Greg gave me AIDS.
So you're gonna die of AIDS and you don't know what to do. Your entire life feels like it's turning into poo. You're gonna die of AIDS, it's all over your face. You're gonna die of AIDS, you're gonna die of AIDS.
It is no more funny till all of it got real, and Onision-Shiloh relationship held everything else in this world but love and respect. The final point makes a crucial observation. Violence against women is preventable. The health sector has an important role to play in providing comprehensive care to women subjected to violence, and serves as an entry point for referring them to additional support services. To build on this, it's equally important that women are empowered to be bold, fearless, and unafraid to speak up, even on camera. The power of the media in today's world is immense and undeniable. When a woman chooses to share her story publicly, it not only helps her begin the healing process, but it also sends a powerful message to countless others who are suffering in silence. One woman's courage can light the path for many. It can break the stigma, challenge the shame, and create a ripple effect of strength and solidarity. The more these stories are seen and heard, the closer we get to a world where silence no longer protects losers, and survivors are no longer alone.
For me. You okay?
If only he was that caring towards the women around him. Because this is all what the girls who lived with him had to say about him, especially Shiloh.
And then he made me do a lot of videos. Well, he tried. I think I only got one of them out. He made me do a lot of videos as bald characters, like The Last Airbender. He wanted me to do Lex Luthor. He exploited it.
It sounds like he got off on having you essentially end your career while he used you to promote his.
Oh, the ultimate submission. I gave him everything.
I mean, your singing is done and you end up being, a shaved head.
Forcing your girlfriend to shave her head is the worst possible thing a man can do. But you know what's worse than that? Forcing her to face the camera and get her to do some random character for the sake of creating and promoting their own content and entertaining and nurturing their audience. Another traumatizing video of Shiloh crying badly on camera.
A is an alpha. I want to be able to talk. I want people to realize that he's been telling people lies.
And yes, this video too was recorded by Onision. At this point, it's not shocking, it's disturbing. This guy isn't just out of line, he's completely out of his mind. You didn't love a girl, Onision, you used her. No, you misused her. Her emotions, her vulnerability, her character, her fame, you twisted all of it into fuel for your own pathetic attempt at a career boost. And if anyone's paying attention, you'll notice something even more sinister. He's acting calm, deliberately. He's carefully staging a composed presence while Shiloh is crying on a call, clearly in distress. That fake calmness, that's manipulation. It's not care, it's not concern, it's calculated. Because a real partner, a real man, would have dropped everything to check on her, to make sure she was okay. But Onision, he stayed behind the camera. He stayed focused on capturing the moment, not helping the person. And that's the truth about him. Unreliable, untrustworthy, shameless. Rude, cunning, and cold enough to showcase his fake calm while his partner falls apart on camera.
Hello? Hi.
Get the camera off of me, I swear to God. He has a camera on me. He has a camera on me right now. Get the camera off of me. Why do you...
So Shiloh is crying, begging him to turn the camera off. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. And yet, as we can clearly see, there's no response from Onision. No pause, no empathy. Just the cold, continuous gaze of the camera lens fixed on her as he keeps recording. Where's the consent, sir? Oh, right. Expecting an understanding of consent from someone like Onision might be asking too much. Because what kind of person hears a desperate plea and chooses to press record instead of stop? But wait, let's take a look at what happens next.
You have a camera on me.
Okay, thank you.
Get the camera off of me.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Get the camera off of me.
Buddy, the problem is that when I was on the phone with my Aunt Kelly and my mom, you threatened to kill yourself in the background, so that's 2 witnesses. It's...
You know what? No, you're gonna listen to me. You're gonna listen to me because you're never gonna see me again. So once in your life, you're going to listen to me. Okay? Look at me. Look at me, Greg. I don't care if you record me, you're gonna listen to me. I'm going to seriously tell everybody what you've done to me.
We all remember Shiloh's haunting words, "I will tell everybody what you did to me." That alone speaks volumes. It's clear she endured far more than what was ever shown on camera. Time and time again, we saw Onision filming her when she was clearly not in her senses, confused, fragile, and possibly not even aware she was being recorded. And we have to ask, was any of that truly with her consent? Was she perhaps always under the influence? Always in a vulnerable state? The signs were there, but no one stopped to question them. We also heard Onision casually say to his mother on a call, she said she's going to kill herself. That statement should have been a blaring alarm, a moment for deep concern and intervention. But instead it became just another clip, another moment used to feed his content. He could record her suffering, but not stop to ask her why she felt that way. Not once did he pause to explore the pain behind her words. That's not just emotional negligence. That's dehumanizing.
I'm gonna destroy you.
I haven't done anything to you.
Yes, you have. You destroyed everything. I'm forced to go back there. She's gonna kick me out and I have nothing. Just know that when they say on the news that I was found, brutally, that it was because of you.
As a common person with common ideas of love and relationships, it is horrifying to see a girl cry on camera for her life in front of an abuser who himself is recording her. It's cruel and nonsense. Shiloh just literally said that she lost her career, and nobody is going to take her back to the position where she left him at. All her fame, all her wealth, her identity, her art, and her ambition, just for Onision and her love for him. She literally said that if one day she was found brutally murdered somewhere, that would be because of him, which itself is a very strong statement for anyone. But Onision, on the other hand, is completely unaffected. Either he has a strong backing who will take him out of this situation all swift, smooth, and clean, or he is so out of his own mind that he doesn't care about the repercussions.
Look at me.
We broke up.
Look at me. I don't give a shit whether we broke up or not. I do not give a shit. What you have done to me is irreversible. You've destroyed any way for me to support myself. I have nothing. You have destroyed me.
Can you take a step back?
No.
I'm backed into...
He claims they broke up a long time ago. But if that's true, then why is Shiloh still staying at his place? Why is she crying uncontrollably if they're supposedly done? If the relationship ended, why aren't they dealing with things separately, like two individuals moving on with their lives? The reality is far messier and far more painful. Shiloh herself said she won't back down and that she will expose him in front of the world. She also confessed that Onision damaged her so deeply that it feels irreversible. And that's the most heartbreaking part, when someone breaks you to the point where returning to a normal life feels impossible. That's not just a toxic relationship, that's trauma. That's the destruction of someone's spirit, their identity, and their sense of self-worth.
Then you have to promise to listen to me.
I'm not going to promise anything. The police are... Excuse me.
You're going to listen to me.
You know, open the door for the police.
You've destroyed everything. Everything that you do isn't real.
So he claimed he had called the police. But wasn't he just on the phone with his mother? Who exactly was he trying to fool? And more importantly, why is all of this unfolding in a studio setting? Why take a clearly distressed Shiloh there in the first place? Was the studio just another trap? Another stage for content creation? It's hard not to question whether he brought her there to film yet another video that would blow up online, thanks of course to her presence, not his talent. Because let's be honest, what has Onision ever done without riding on the backs of his girlfriends? His first viral hit, I'm a Banana, wasn't even just about him. His girlfriend was in it too. The pattern's obvious, and frankly exhausting. But we'll talk more about that later.
What would you like us to do, sir? You called.
I called my sister and she told me to just leave, to just move away.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah. But here's the weird thing. I can't stop paying utilities here. I can't shut it off because that would be an illegal eviction according to the people I talked to.
Yep.
So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll just have to move to LA because I'm going to work down there and keep paying utilities and hope my house isn't vandalized. Or anything.
Do you rent or own?
I own.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, she refuses to leave, so I don't know.
Well,
in this video, the title boldly states, "Later enters the police." But let's take a closer look. Where's the police? Nowhere to be seen. And that's strange, especially coming from Onision, a guy who religiously records every little moment, real or scripted. Suddenly the camera goes off? Suddenly there's no footage? Suspicious, to say the least. He claims the police were at the door. He even opens it dramatically, saying there must be the police out there. But the camera shows no one. Not a single person outside. So we're left wondering, did the police actually come? Or was this yet another one of Onision's well-rehearsed, or when she was doing well on her own? You pulled her back in, fed her whatever you fed her, emotionally, mentally, maybe even chemically, and used her to spark traction for your dying YouTube channel. You profited off her pain, her vulnerability, her fame. And now you want to act like the victim? Let's be real. Shiloh didn't need the police. She needed help. Real, medical, psychological help. But instead of getting her a therapist or even just basic human support, you dialed the police as if she was the problem. That's not what a decent boyfriend does, not what a decent person does. Especially not someone who calls himself an influencer. But let's keep going. Let's see what happens next.
Yeah, I have to work every day. I work full-time every single day, so...
Well, you got to get your priorities and say, hey, do I want this situation to continue on our end? And then, once you've made that determination, you need to take the step to move either this way or this way.
In order for me to continue doing my job, I have to leave here because she's not leaving,
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go to LA as soon as possible.
And what has changed since the cops came out here last night?
She threatened to kill herself in between that time.
Okay.
And she got hysterical. And
what did she say?
She said that she said I was on the phone with my Aunt Kelly and she threatened to kill herself, and then I called the cops and she said that she was. What did you say exactly? You said it. You said something. You said you were going to make it look really bad or something.
Did you threaten yourself, young lady?
I did.
You did?
I'm not going to deny that.
How come? That's not those aren't the statements.
Yes, Onision, we know exactly what happened. And let's be clear, what happened was brutal, deeply disturbing, and entirely irresponsible on your part, not Shiloh's. Your girlfriend, clearly in distress, says she wants to end her life. And your first reaction, you call your aunt. You plan to run away back home. That's your grand solution? Not helping her, not calling a doctor, not comforting her, but planning your own exit? Incredible. Truly, what kind of partner hears someone they claim to love express suicidal thoughts and thinks about themselves first? Saddening. Now let's take a look at the comment box under that video. Here is the first comment where the audience seems to be very sad and angry at Onision and his act toward Shiloh. Oh honey, the fact that she had a spontaneous natural abortion and didn't pass the embryo and he did nothing about it, didn't want to pay for the health care, that's got to be the cruelest thing one could possibly do. She's already suffering emotionally from the loss of that baby. And then to put her life in danger by putting her at risk for sepsis? That's just unfathomable. I'm so sorry for your loss, Shiloh. You're such a strong woman for getting through that. Thank you for sharing your story and doing your part to make sure that this awful man never victimizes another little girl. So now we know that Shiloh also had an abortion. Onision accused her at a level that at a point she was pregnant with Onision's kid, and she also had an unfortunate abortion. It must have been extremely painful both physically and mentally to Shiloh, as a woman and lady who was madly in love with Onision. This case has way more complications that we could see and notice. Onision is already a father to a kid. Let's take a look on other such comments. Your career is going to be finished. Trust me, I'm capable of it. I couldn't help but smile because you finally got your voice, Shiloh. So people, especially women, seem to be very happy and proud of Shiloh finally realizing of her potential and power that she always had within herself. Here's another long, lengthy comment where a person has actually kind of studied and analyzed the pattern and psyche of Onision. So at Marcelo Lopez 9053 says, first, Greg likes to lure into girls of 17 to 19 years old, Shiloh, Lainey, and Billy, preferably not from the local area so it's harder for them to leave. After that, he makes them feel like they are the only one, tweeting romantic, cryptic things to them. He convinced them he will support them financial, Sky, Adrian, Shiloh, and Billy, and if they don't leave their work after that, he will guilt trip them until they do. Once the girl move with him, that's when hell start. He will try to shut down anyone who try to break them apart. Family and friends, like he tried to do with Billy and Adrian, he did with Lainey and Shiloh. Once he isolate them, he start putting them down, destroy their self-confidence, and defeminize, like convince them not to use makeup and just straight getting them bald. He will also try to impregnate or convince the girl to have a baby with him, like he tried with Adrian, like he did with Lainey, and presumably he tried with Billy. He sees babies like a way to chain the girl to him forever, and even if the girl wants to leave the baby, will make it impossible for her to erase him from their life. Since the girl on turn doesn't have a job, it's harder for her to leave, since she doesn't have money for the flight or to crash somewhere else, and doesn't count with family or friends to relay on like it happened to Shiloh in the footage. If you still defend Onision after this, then I really hope you end up with someone like him. So maybe after he break you into pieces, maybe you'll find some empathy and defend the right side for the right reasons. Girl here surely's made a strong point, and such comments uplift the courage of the victim to take a stand for themselves and stop being the prey to predators like Onision. On the other side, there are also fans of Onision who can't help it but back him up with every possible or delusional reason like this one. At Mr. Burb here says, 17 to 19 is legal in his and Lainey's states, so? Which means that 17 to 19 are the legal ages in his and Lainey's states to have. But here is another comment that states the fact. Hunter, the EVA, actually, it was illegal for him to date Shiloh and Lainey when he did, so he met them in a state where it was legal to have them. Even ignoring that, which why would you, the women who end up at his house to be poly or whatever are still considerably younger. And that right there is such a powerful and critical point to consider. Onision has repeatedly targeted younger women, let's be honest, girls, who are emotionally vulnerable, impressionable, and still finding their footing in the world. He doesn't seek out equals, he seeks out those who are easier to manipulate. Girls who are more likely to say yes to anything he asks, whether it's moving across the country, flying to a different part of the world, moving into his apartment, tolerating his psychological and emotional abuse, or worse, engaging in they may not fully understand or feel safe in. And just when they're too deep to easily escape, he adds another chain to the trap, a child that ties them down emotionally and legally, making it even harder for these young women to break free from his control. This isn't love, it's calculated entrapment, A cycle of exploitation dressed up as a relationship. Now let's focus back on the first comment and talk about the fatherhood and Onision's relationship with his kids. So this article was published and focused on Onision's daughter's accident that made everyone doubt and question his parenting. According to the reports, Onision, aka Jackson, has been married twice. First, he married Sky Tentaga from 2005 to 2010. He married his current partner, Lucas Jackson, formerly Kai Avero Anderson, in 2012. And who are Onision's kids? Kai and Onision have 2 kids together. They are Troy, a son born in 2013, and Chloe, a daughter born in 2016. So according to a petition on Change titled Take Onision's Kids Away and a social media post containing excerpts from a police report, Onision's daughter, Chloe, then fell from 2 stories in her home on the 12th of September 2019. Instead of rushing to help his child, Jackson filmed the aftermath while waiting for the ambulance. Let's all just take a deep breath, because this entire scenario is not only nonsense, it's brutal, inhuman, and enough to trigger a whole new level of outrage. Your child, just 2 years old, falls from a height at your home, a terrifying moment for any parent. And what do? You don't run to her. You don't call an ambulance. You don't check if she's bleeding, breathing, or even conscious. You don't show an ounce of the urgency or care any normal, loving parent would. Instead, you reach for your phone and start recording. How could you even justify that? This isn't just neglect, it's a complete failure of basic human empathy. It's sickening to live in a world where parents are more concerned about views, likes, and content than the safety of their own children. This isn't some nursery rhyme. This wasn't Humpty Dumpty at a great fall. This was your child, your baby. And it could have been fatal. Moments like these aren't content. They're calls for action, for compassion, for responsibility. And in that moment, you showed none. Later, according to the police report, EMTs rushed the child to the hospital, where doctors discovered that she had suffered multiple skull fractures. However, after further observation, doctors concluded that the injuries were not life-threatening, but required additional monitoring. But the saddest part here is, this incident led to an investigation by Child Protective Services, CPS, and the police. Despite the severity of the incident and the ensuing investigation, the children remain in the custody of their parents. Here's a discussion going on the subreddit about Onision's bad parenting and the situation of his kids. The CPS investigation has likely been closed. I don't know how child protection laws work in Washington, nor do I know how CPS works in Washington state, so take this all with a grain of salt. I'm intimately familiar with how CPS, DCF in my state, functions in my state, as I'm a cop. I've done visit escorts, removals, the whole 9 yards. If Washington is anything like my state, and most other states in the Union are no better than mine in terms of their CPS agencies, then CPS wouldn't have had nearly enough to remove the children. In most states, you essentially need to wait for a child to be actually used in order to remove them. Very basically, the mandate of CPS is to keep the family together until the last possible moment. While that works in some situations, it doesn't in others. Yes, even a child falling out a window likely wouldn't instigate anything more than a very basic CPS investigation. Talk to the children alone, the spouses alone, inspect the home, and check LE records on the family. Including the window incident, there likely would have been enough there. Dozens of 911 calls from the home, numerous outside tip calls, the allegations against Grugel, to warrant nothing more than a couple weeks worth of follow-up. A couple of random quick house visits, and that's pretty much it. It's sad, but it's just the way these things work. CPS agencies across the nation are undermanned, underfunded, and typically have a mandate of keep the family together until the very last possible moment. 90% of CPS workers are non-sworn, unarmed, non-LE personnel. Yet they're often placed in dangerous situations or forced to go alone into dangerous neighborhoods. This, among a myriad of other reasons, leads to low retention and high turnover burnout. It's a terrible situation that shows no sign of stopping. Here's a fan turned into a hater saying, "I find it sickening that he filmed his daughter as the ambulance came to prove it wasn't. What about comforting her?" There's a Reddit account which me and others are almost certain is Greg, and I don't know if it's to try and make people believe it isn't him or what, but that account basically accuses Kai of pushing that thing, yes, they called the kid that, out of the window. There are a few possible reasons why the account said this. They aren't actually Greg, but some crazed fan who can't see how he did anything wrong. It is Greg, but wants people to think otherwise, so said something completely disgusting. It's Greg again, who is trying to put blame on his spouse, so is trying to make Kai out to be some kind of child-abusing monster toward their kid. I mean, Kai isn't innocent, but I'm not sure they'd push their child out of a window. It's just bizarre that the account would say something like that. In any case, I hope those kids end up somewhere safe. It breaks my heart to see any kid in a bad home. It surely is heartbreaking to watch a parent who we call an influencer doing such an awful thing. And here's an article which says, demand Patreon to take action against predators, Onision and Kai, of which the bottom column is a recent update on the issue, which says, thank you all so much for signing this petition. I am pleased to update you today to let you know that Patreon has confirmed to news website The Verge that they have removed him from their platform. This comes after Onision publicly shared one of his accusers' phone numbers on his public Twitter with 288,000 followers. When reached for comment, Twitter stated they do not allow this, but did not take action against this because they apparently did not see the screenshot. Patreon was not as kind to Onion Boy. In less than 2 weeks, we achieved over 5,000 signatures, and I believe this speaks volumes. I believe we could set a new goal because the predator is still online. Stay tuned for updates, but for now, celebrate. Now, you gotta be wondering what happened to Shiloh later. But before we go any further, let's take a moment to understand who Chris Hansen is, and why his role in Shiloh's journey out of this horrifying spiral is so important. Chris Hansen is a veteran investigative reporter and author with over 37 years of experience in hard-hitting journalism. He's tackled some of the toughest and most disturbing subjects, often in the most challenging environments. From his early days in local news in Detroit, Michigan, to national recognition through platforms like Dateline NBC, Investigation Discovery, and Crime Watch Daily, Hansen has built a reputation for relentless pursuit of the truth. On his ever-growing YouTube channel, which currently boasts around 416,000 subscribers, Hansen curates a range of investigative content. His most renowned series is Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, where he invites individuals, often survivors, to speak about truth and share their stories with the world. The show is raw, courageous, and backed by Hansen's signature in-depth research and commitment to justice. His involvement in Shiloh's case was more than just media coverage. It was a lifeline. With years of experience and a fearless approach to exposing abuse, Chris Hansen gave Shiloh a platform when she needed it the most and stood firmly behind the truth. On his show, Chris had invited Shiloh to share her life journey with people and clear all the confusions regarding the delusions people had in their minds regarding Shiloh and Onision. The show is called Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, featuring Shiloh discussing Onision. Let's check out what Shiloh really went through with her journey with Onision.
Tonight we have a very important guest, Shiloh, who will join us shortly. I just want to say a couple things about YouTube in general, and specifically relating to Have a Seat with Chris Hansen in our previous YouTube channel. We still have it, but we do this show here now called Hansen versus Brett. Can't say the word because apparently it's one of the banned words by YouTube. If you've been following all this, YouTube apparently now has a giant list of words, and if you use too many of them on your YouTube channel, you'll be sanctioned, meaning you're demonetized, and many YouTubers depend on those ad dollars to put their shows on. Us, not so much. We're going to do this regardless, but it points out and raises some questions that I can't answer, and maybe some of you guys out there can, but I've reached out to the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcinski, asking for an interview on why would alleged predators be allowed to still be on YouTube doing their shows, coaxing all kinds of people into doing who knows what.
This is a real point. Why is the channel of predators still active and doing solid earnings for themselves? Why are they given the right to teach or influence people when we have an authority sitting up there who can easily control these cards and get only the right and legal kind of content out on the screen for the world to absorb? Let's quickly sneak into how exactly Chris Hansen tried meeting Onision. Chris here tried to act smart, but failed very badly because he did not early realize the power of Onision and how cunning he can be. While he knocked at Onision's door or even tried to contact him, Onision, like always, started recording each and every little thing on his camera and posted it. What else could Onision do? He filmed his depressed girlfriend and injured kid. How could he not shoot Chris?
911, what are you reporting?
Hi, there's a person who's been stalking me online and they just showed up to my house.
Okay, and they're outside now?
Yes, they're knocking on my door.
Okay. And do you know if they have any weapons?
They have a bunch of camera people, like they're YouTube stalkers.
They are YouTube stalkers? Wow. And you are an influencer and a YouTube bad influencer.
As you watch this, it's important to remember that all the camera crews, sound guys, and attorney Mike Morris stayed on the street when I went up to knock on James Jackson, Gregory Jackson, Onision's door to see if he would talk to me. I've been doing this for some 40 years. I didn't get into YouTube to start journalism, but I did take my brand of journalism to YouTube to expose alleged predators.
Okay, but no weapons seen?
I didn't see any weapons. I just saw like 6 guys in my driveway, and one of them is knocking on my door.
Okay, 1 second here. And the one that's knocking on your door, is he the main one that you said has been stalking you?
Yes, he's a stalker. He's yelling things at me through the door now.
Well. While Onision is busy throwing out fake allegations against Chris, who's simply trying to investigate, he accuses him of stalking. Seriously? Onision either thinks he's some kind of celebrity superstar or a misunderstood cartoon character from a kids show. All Chris did was knock on his door for a conversation. He didn't even bring his full camera crew, as we all clearly saw. And speaking of stalking, let's not forget who the real stalker in this situation is. Onision is the one who seeks out, flirts with, invites, manipulates, and ultimately harms younger girls, many of whom barely knew what they were getting into. None of that was accidental. It was all disturbingly intentional. At this point, how could he possibly defend himself with any credibility? It's pure madness. Also, it seems calling the police has become one of his favorite new hobbies. Remember when Shiloh was breaking down his studio, bawled, panicked, and begging him to stop recording? He still kept the camera rolling and only muted the part where he called the cops, never once showing their faces. So it wouldn't be a stretch to believe he faked the police call this time too, just to play the victim. The drama keeps getting darker, but let's wait and see what Chris had to say next. This could even get more interesting.
It's ironic that Onision says I've been stalking him, when in fact he's the one accused of stalking his young female victims on YouTube and on various social media platforms. He also went so far as to take my video from interviews and splice them together with video of him, making it falsely look like I asked him some questions. Absurd.
There's nothing wrong to be found in Chris's statement. Everything he said checks out. On the other hand, Onision has consistently proven himself to be a shady and deeply troubling figure. At this point, Onision doesn't even feel like a name anymore. It's more like an adjective, a label for a dark and manipulative personality that leaves chaos and harm in its wake. His actions speak louder than any of his dramatic defenses, and the internet isn't so quick to forget. Let's see what unfolds next, because with someone like Onision, things rarely stay quiet for long.
Okay, and what do we know his name at all?
It's Chris Hansen.
Okay, Hansen?
Hansen, yeah. Hansen.
And then Chris?
Chris, yeah.
Okay, is he white, black, Asian, Hispanic?
He's white.
Okay, do we know
He's
how old he is?
older. He's like probably 58, 60, something like that.
Tall?
Probably 5'10", 5'11".
Okay, then medium or heavy?
He's skinnier.
What color hair?
Blondish gray.
Okay, and are you able to see what he's wearing or no?
I think he's wearing a black jacket.
Okay.
I have a security camera.
Uh-huh. Can you see what color pants?
He's wearing a black jacket, black pants. His hair is gray. He's still yelling things at me through the door.
Greg, are you there? Kai?
As we can clearly see for ourselves, Chris is simply calling out the names of Greg and Kai, hoping to speak with them. There's absolutely nothing even remotely stalker-like in his behavior. No creeping around, no sneaky tactics, just straightforward journalism. Yet Onision bizarrely tries to paint Chris Hansen as if he's some kind of criminal sneaking around the neighborhood like a thief. The irony, Chris Hansen is a well-known public figure with a solid reputation. He has over 416,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel and a long, successful career in investigative journalism. People know who he is. He doesn't need to lurk in the shadows to get answers. But of course, Onision loves to twist the narrative in his favor. Whatever. Let's continue watching the video. Things are bound to get even more ridiculous.
This would be a great opportunity for you guys to tell your side of the story here, talk about the controversy, the allegations. The allegations of grooming, the inappropriate behavior allegations.
Can you hear what he's yelling?
Oh, he's saying, I want your side of the story, Greg. My name's not even Greg.
Okay. What is your last name?
My name is James Jackson.
Okay. Last of Jackson, first of James is what I heard. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's saying, I just want to talk through the door.
Okay.
So we've all heard Chris Hansen calmly and respectfully requesting Greg to simply come out and talk to him just once. This shouldn't be something that triggers Onision, right? Chris isn't storming the place or making threats. He's offering an opportunity, an open invitation for Onision to finally share his side of the story. Chris made it clear he wants to give Onision a fair chance to speak in front of the world and explain his version of events. But as always, Onision refuses to take it at face value. Instead of engaging in an honest conversation, he does what he does best. Sit inside and record people twisting the narrative to make himself look like the victim. If his side of the story actually had any truth to it, why not just step outside and say it? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it does. That's why he resorts to dramatics, turning a calm civil moment into some exaggerated crisis, like the world is crashing down on him. It's classic Onision. Avoid the facts, spin the drama.
Greg Onision James's demeanor on this 911 call is dramatically different from what we've seen recently on his YouTube videos, where he's variously claimed that he's having some sort of a breakdown, upset that people are approaching him on the street, saying that his condition is somehow a result of a dog having him when he was younger.
As described by Chris, Onision's mental condition is actually really suspicious. He keeps on posting the breakdown videos of himself on his YouTube channel.
Wow! Wow, you would really do that! You would really do that! You tried to do the FBI, didn't work! You tried to do the police, didn't work! So instead, you resort to the paycheck!
Here we can clearly see Onision breaking down so badly that he's literally screaming and crying and acting all weird on the screen, which for a lot of the first-time watchers is a scary thing, but for his regular audience it doesn't feel anything different since they're used to it. They're used to the drama that Onision creates on his channel every now and then. Let's return to the part where Chris is trying to meet Onision.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any weapons in the home, James?
No, I don't.
Okay. And you said that there's roughly 5 more people there with cameras?
Yes, in the driveway.
Okay.
So the police never actually showed up, and Onision ended up calling them back to check if they were even on their way to investigate Chris Hansen and his so-called stalking. It's honestly bizarre and a bit laughable to watch a grown man, a father, and a self-proclaimed influencer who claims he's here to change the world with his intellectual and emotional insight, frantically dialing the police to protect himself from a journalist just standing outside his door. What makes it even more disturbing is the contrast. This same man didn't call the police even once when his young daughter fell from the 2nd floor of his home, reportedly suffering multiple head fractures, was wrapped in blood, and was struggling to breathe. Not one emergency call. But now he's in a panic over Chris Hansen simply knocking and asking to talk. It's funny, but only in the darkest, most sarcastic way. Honestly, it's not just ironic, it's absolutely awful. You all must be half shocked and half blank at this moment. Let's check what the audience had to say about this whole situation in the comment box. At Goodberry's Official here says, imagine calling the police and telling them the guy who hosts To Catch a Predator is at your door. Imagine telling on yourself like that. No, seriously, it is funny. The statement, "Chris Hansen is at my door," says it all. It practically confirms to the police that something shady is going on. It's almost like Onision unintentionally reported himself. I mean, think about it. Chris Hansen is known for exposing predators. If he's knocking on your door and calling out your name, well, congratulations, you're already on the list. It's almost poetic how Onision's own words betrayed him. Calling the cops on Chris Hansen, that's not a defense, that's a red flag. Another comment over here again is funny. LMFAO. Please, cops, Chris Hansen is at my door. Take him away. Dude gave himself up on the spot, just mentioning Chris Hansen. Way funnier. Almost everybody in the comments section has gone crazy and is laughing their hearts out with the game that Onision played this time, like he does every time he wants to keep a proof of something he records. But this time, the wind flew in a different direction. Another one here is hilarious. At Catherine Harway 6359 here says, listening to him describe Chris Hansen to the 911 operator has me in hysterics. It has everyone in hysterics, girl. Now let's dig into the heart of the matter. Why did Chris Hansen visit Onision in the first place? What exactly sparked this entire situation? Let's get to the root cause. We've already seen Chris introducing Shiloh on his show to know the root cause of this whole Onision-Shiloh chaos that everybody wanted clarity on. Here in the first clip, Shiloh is properly explained how she discovered Onision's channel and how their conversation actually started.
I was in that kind of upswing era of YouTube, so I started watching a lot of vloggers at that time, and I'd come across some of his stuff.
And you were performing this time. You were already a household name in Canada and really throughout North America in some ways.
On 3 tours at that point.
And how old were you at this time?
16.
16.
Yeah.
So you're a performer, you're a hot ticket, and you come across Onision how?
I saw a couple of his videos on his Speaks channel, and I remember being in a really interesting situation with a teenage boyfriend at the time, and I wanted advice on it, so I had contacted him, and it was just by email, and I didn't think I'd get a response or anything like that, but I explained the situation between me and that boy, and I got an email back.
As Shiloh mentioned, she was just 16 when she first came across Onision's content. She was casually scrolling through her feed when a video caught her eye, a guy speaking about a deep, emotional topic that seemed oddly relatable. Intrigued, she decided to message him, curious to know if the things Onision said actually aligned with her own thoughts and feelings. Let's not overlook the fact that Shiloh was already somewhat of a star at the time. She had a growing fan base, people admired her, and she was just gaining attention for her talent. But at the end of the day, she was still just 16, a teenager navigating fame, emotion, and identity. At that age, how sensible can anyone truly be? That's not to question her intelligence, but rather to highlight the natural imbalance between courage and caution that often comes with youth. She was brave, no doubt, but perhaps not fully prepared for what was ahead. What drew her in was that same depth she carried within herself. She saw it mirrored in Onision's words, and maybe that perceived compatibility struck a chord. It made sense to her then. So she kept talking to him, unaware of the dark path it would lead to. Little did she know, what felt like a spark of connection would become the beginning of something far more complicated. Let's see what fate had in store for her next.
You were some kid in the middle of Saskatchewan someplace with no social life or no popularity of your own. You were a star, and yet you still were, somehow struck by the fact that Onision got back to you?
I wasn't so much struck as I thought, oh, this person will get it. This person's on, the same kind of, level as me in the world right now. And knowing that, I guess I felt, at that time, kind of outside because I wasn't going to school or anything like that. So I didn't have, a regular friend base. So I would seek out friendships within my own community. And so I kind of saw him as somebody that was in my community. And so when he reached back out to me, I was like, wow. But at the same time, I was kind of like, maybe this could really be it.
As Shiloh explained, despite her growing popularity and fame at a young age, she had very few close friends, hardly anyone she could truly confide in or be emotionally vulnerable with. While most 16-year-olds are navigating high school with a solid group of friends they proudly hang out with, Shiloh's reality was quite different. Teenage years, especially between 15 and 19, are incredibly delicate. It's a time when careers, long-term goals, friendships, romantic relationships, and major life decisions all start to take shape, while the body and mind are already dealing with a surge of overwhelming hormonal changes. During this stage, every teenager craves connection, someone they can talk to about their dislikes, likes, dreams, frustrations, and fears. These conversations are often too personal to share with parents or siblings, which makes peer relationships even more significant. The people teens surround themselves with during this time can influence not only their present mindset, but also the trajectory of their future. It's a phase where risk-taking feels natural, and courage often outweighs caution, driven by the emotional intensity of youth. And because of this, it becomes the most critical point in a young person's life, a phase that can either push them toward immense growth or drag them into darkness. In Shiloh's case, she didn't just fall, she hit rock bottom. She was manipulated, emotionally drained, and mentally scarred. She was burned by an experience that should never have happened. But what makes her story powerful is what came next. She rose. Like a phoenix from the ashes, Shiloh chose to speak out, to share truth and reclaim her voice. She's not just surviving, she's rebuilding her place in the world, and that takes real strength. Let's dive back into Shiloh and Chris Hansen's interview.
The first email he sent back to me stated, like after the whole explanation of me and that boy, he had said to me, you know, there's over 7 billion people in the world. You don't know how you're going to love somebody in the future. And just to me, like, seemed so wise and knowing at that time. And so I got really kind of attached to looking for advice from him.
And you continued this communication online for how long? Till you actually met him?
Yeah, for about 8 or 9 months. It was between like January and December of 2011. And we ended up talking about like pretty much all day, all of the waking hours. It was starting to bother my mother a lot. It took me away from her. Yeah, we talked about everything. He made me feel good about myself, you know, would give me advice on even what to wear, like kind of like a gay best friend would. You know, like, but I didn't see it as strange or anything at the time.
As we discussed earlier, Shiloh was in a vulnerable place, isolated and without real friends to open up to. So when she confided in Onision about her relationship struggles with her boyfriend, he responded with what sounded like wise, mature advice, exactly the kind of response that would impress a teenager searching for emotional clarity and support. The heavy fog of depression that once clouded her began to lift, replaced by daily conversations and guidance from someone who seemed to understand her. But as we later heard from Shiloh herself, her mother found this dynamic deeply disturbing. Perhaps it was a mother's intuition or simply common sense. She may have sensed the gradual shift in her daughter's energy, drive, and focus. A girl once full of ambition and passion for her career was now slowly losing interest, consumed by endless late-night conversations with someone much older, someone who suddenly began to pull her away from the world she had built for herself. Naturally, like many teenagers, Shiloh clashed with her mother. Arguments about Onision and their ongoing communication became frequent. But in hindsight, those confrontations weren't just generational disagreements, they were red flags. Her mother likely saw what Shiloh couldn't at the time: a slow unraveling of her identity, her ambition, and her emotional independence. If only Shiloh had been able to take a step back, to view her life from a third-person perspective, perhaps she might have seen this slow erosion of everything she had worked for. The career she had built, the reputation she had earned, and the dreams she once held close were all quietly slipping away, buried beneath the illusion of support from someone who was never truly there to help her rise.
Continued, you were comfortable with it. Did he start to make advances that were more than just friendship and advice?
At the time, I didn't really think so. But he was really kind of constantly pushing me to come out and see him and Sky. And now she was I had seen that somebody thought that maybe it was a secret that me and him were talking during that time, but Sky was in the background a lot of the time. And I think the only person at the time actually that noticed what was going on was my mother and probably Sky. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I got kind of sidetracked.
When did, no, not a problem at all. You're right on track. When did it become more than just a conversation, advice, an online meeting of the minds between people who are,
Nothing that really stuck out to me before he kind of abruptly called me and told me that he was divorcing Sky for me. Before that moment, there was really just stuff that I look back on now as being more than just friendship. Like, I was okay with I was okay with sitting in front of the camera in my bra or something like that because he had made it okay.
Did he ask you to do this, or was it just more, hey, I'm getting dressed or I'm comfortable and this is what I'm doing right now? And
yeah, it was just kind of I was comfortable and that he didn't make it an issue. And so it was never really a thing. Nothing was ever outright until he told me that he had fallen in love with me.
He had fallen in love with you based upon your online conversations and your texting and whatnot.
Shiloh grew so comfortable with Onision that she would often spend hours talking to him in her most relaxed state, sometimes just wearing a bra, engaging in long, deep conversations about anything that sparked mutual interest. One striking detail she shared was that, much like Shiloh's own mother, Onision's then-wife Sky was often within earshot of these conversations. Now you might wonder, how could someone not be alarmed by their spouse engaging in lengthy, emotionally intimate talks with a teenage girl, especially when that teenager was visibly stepping back from her own dreams and career, becoming emotionally entangled in this undefined relationship? It's hard to believe Sky wasn't picking up on the emotional shift, or at least questioning the closeness forming between her husband and this young girl. Whether it was silent observation or quiet suspicion, there's little doubt that Sky must have had concerns, either about Onision's intentions or the emotional grip he was starting to have on Shiloh. But what truly shakes you is the moment when Onision randomly calls Shiloh and confesses that he's divorcing Sky because he's in love with her, with Shiloh, a teenager. How do you fall in love with someone so young while you're still married, possibly raising a child, and presenting a facade of a stable, happy marriage online? This isn't just poor judgment, it's a disturbing pattern. First, he gains traction with the Banana song and uses humor and quirkiness to charm an audience. Then he ditches his wife. He brings another girl into the spotlight, boosts his channel with her presence, only to emotionally and eventually cast her out as if she were the manipulator. Let's call it what it is, classic chameleon behavior. Onision doesn't just adapt, he preys. He shifts his personality to match the vulnerability of the person he's targeting. And once he's drained them, he sheds that skin and moves on, just like a snake preparing to strike again. It's not just manipulative, it's terrifying.
You say Sky, that was his wife partner before Kai?
This was his wife before I was his girlfriend, and after me came Kai.
Okay. Sky, you, Kai.
Sky, Shy, Kai.
Sky.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does he tell you about his marriage to Sky?
Well, I was in PA at the time, in a hotel.
Pennsylvania.
We were communicating through the computer system that they had there at the time.
And you were performing in Pennsylvania?
I was doing kind of like a fitness thing at the time. So I was getting ready to perform.
Got it.
I was about to go on my 4th tour. I had just signed internationally, and I was getting ready to release another album.
And you were 16, 17?
I was 16 when we met. I was 17 when we met in person.
Got it.
So I was 17 at the time of being in PA. He called me. We talked a couple of days as soon as I got there, and nothing seemed wrong. And nothing really seemed wrong between him and Sky to me at all. So when he told me, and he told me straight out, it was, Sky wasn't there. It was really solemn. And he just kind of held up these papers. And he was like, these are divorce papers. And Sky signed them.
Divorce papers.
Yeah, and I'm divorcing Sky. And then he went on to explain that it was because he had fallen in love with me.
And did you, at the age of 17, believe him at that point?
Yeah, I was shocked because I was a fan of theirs as well. So like, I kind of like saw them fall out in my head as a fan. I was like, well, you know, what the F? You know, what is this about? And but doing something like that, and I had never had any real relationship experience. Like, me and the boyfriend that I had before him were online. And so this seemed so fairy tale.
And how old was he at the time?
I believe he was 26 or 27 at the time.
26, 27. So he's a good 10 years older than you. And that's a big 10 years when you're talking about 17.
Shiloh was initially one of the many fans who admired the relationship between Onision and Sky. She saw them as a strong couple, and like many viewers, she never expected anything to come between them. So naturally, she was shocked when Onision suddenly presented divorce papers, claiming he was leaving Sky because he had fallen in love with her. The twist was not just unexpected, it was disturbing. Let's not overlook the facts here. Onision was 27 years old when he first connected with Shiloh. That's nearly a decade older than her. He was fully aware of the age gap, the power dynamic, and the psychological influence he could wield. While Shiloh, still a teenager, couldn't possibly grasp the depth of the manipulation she was stepping into, Onision knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't a case of emotional confusion, it was calculated. What's even more alarming is how easily his predatory behavior went unchecked. Onision displayed clear red flags of grooming and emotional manipulation, yet somehow, those around him, including Sky and others, failed to raise the alarms loud enough. Whether it was disbelief, fear, or denial, the fact remains, a harmful pattern was unfolding in plain sight, and no one stepped in to stop it. Onision wasn't just toxic, he was dangerous. A grown man preying on vulnerable young women under the guise of connection and creativity. Sadly, the world only began to pay attention when it was already too late for many of his victims. Well, let's hit pause on the interview for just a moment. What you've heard so far is Shiloh's story, her version of the manipulation, harm, and emotional devastation inflicted by Onision. But let's be very clear, Shiloh was not the only one. She wasn't the only girl pulled into his world and dragged through the emotional black hole he calls a relationship. There were others, many others. So now as we prepare to dive deeper into the disturbing abuse Shiloh endured while living with Onision, it's only fair and necessary that we also take a look at the other victims, the other girls who suffered in silence, who were manipulated, used, and discarded, just like pieces in his ongoing twisted game. Brace yourselves, things are about to get darker.
Yo, what's up? This girl says she lost 3 stone. I don't know what that means, but I'll still say that rocks. Yo, what's up? I've been over.
A quick glance at any one of Onision's videos on his channel is enough for any sensible viewer to notice the constant disrespect, insults, and emotional abuse that run rampant in his content. He rarely misses an opportunity to tear women down, verbally attacking them left, right, and center, often under the guise of comedy or honesty. But the disturbing part isn't just what he says, it's who he targets. Innocent, underage girls often fall into his trap, drawn in by his fleeting fame, superficial charm, or the romantic fairy tale-like conversations he uses to lure them in. These young fans, still forming their identities, become easy prey for a manipulator who knows exactly how to exploit emotional vulnerability. Let's be real, a grown, self-assured woman who knows her worth would never fall for a man like Onision. His theatrics, irrelevant content, and a rapidly declining career hold no appeal for someone grounded in reality. But for a teenager chasing validation or escape, he appears momentarily as the answer. And that's what makes his behavior not just pathetic, but deeply predatory. Let's get back to Shiloh's interview.
This hotel room in Pennsylvania, were you traveling with your mom, or did you have a chaperone, or what was the situation?
I had my mom with me. Unfortunately, during the trip, my mom had to go get surgery. And there was supposed to be somebody with me at the time, and there wasn't. And so I was staying in the hotel by myself. He made his way to PA. Before he made his way there, he had explained to me that we could get in a lot of trouble.
Into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he explained to me we could get in a lot of trouble, and then he had to check the state laws before he came.
Because of your age.
Because he knew we were going to stick together, and we had spoken about that. And so when he did his research, he informed me that the legal age in Pennsylvania at the time was 16.
16. So he would not be breaking the law if, in fact, the two of you got together and had relations.
Right. And so he made his way to PA. When he got there, he got his own hotel room. I can't remember why. I think it had to do with my mom. But good for her. But yeah, he stayed in a different hotel room. He got the hotel to let me into his room. And when he showed up, he started me immediately. And we got together within like 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, of him showing up. Like I opened up the door and he kissed me right away. He put me on the bed within, like I had no even time to just say, oh my gosh, how was your trip? Like, are you jet-lagged? Anything? No time.
And did this take you aback? Did you expect this to happen so quickly?
It took me back, but I went with it. I was feeling so many things at that point in time that I can't say that I wasn't scared. I was nervous, but not like, I think that I just thought that it was okay and that this was what was going to happen anyways.
So you were okay with it, albeit somewhat confused and emotional.
I was confused and emotional, but it was consensual. So while we were there, he actually had the police called while we were there. Because
your mother had the police called. There was an incident at
my mother actually didn't. It was the hotel.
The hotel did.
Yeah. So
what led to this whole police activity?
He had camera equipment in the room. And
Wait. He shows up after this online relationship. You become, and he has camera equipment.
Yeah. He recorded everything that he did. He vlogged.
He recorded your.
No. That was never at that time. But that's what they thought. So that's why the police were called. His computer was checked for child, and then they left because there was nothing. They made me go home, back to Canada, and they made him go home back to.
So did the people, especially Onision's fans, who were still going crazy about the fact that Shiloh was in the legal age of having, and all of it happened with her consent. Guys, Shiloh was just mentioned about Onision literally calling her to another country, just so that he can her. Yes, surely it was Shiloh's consent, but it definitely wasn't legal in her country. The fact that he called Shiloh in another country just with her is awful. Another fact he didn't even say a hello and greet her properly when he first met her clearly shows how desperate he was to with Shiloh. While she was trying to ask him about his journey to the hotel, he did not utter a word but suddenly jumped on her. So all the deep talks and sensible conversations all gone in vain. Another thing to be pointed out here is very much expected from nobody in the world but Onision. Boy had a camera and other equipment with him. Onision being Onision. How could he not carry a camera to record stuff? But thankfully the hotel staff worked their best to cross-check the stuff out. To think of it this way, Onision is too smart to carry a camera to the hotel in another country and not record the internet scenes between him and Shiloh. Though Shiloh herself doesn't remember him filming her in any possible way, there is a huge possibility of him secretly shooting her. Maybe not on the big camera, but on any other tiny secret camera which we generally see in crime mysteries. Onision has been publicly judging girls of all ages on his YouTube channel. This is again a whole different subject to be pointed out. The hardest fact over here is that there are proofs of other girls coming out and exposing Onision and claiming him of abusing and exploiting them. Sarah, for example, did give a firm statement of her being exploited by Onision in one of her interviews. Here is a video where Onision himself has confessed him collecting images of girls.
To temporarily collecting pictures of people of a variety of ages to tell them in videos whether or not they were fat or not by their own request and submission.
So he's been collecting the images of girls and telling them if they're fat or not? Insane. Not to insult here, but could we judge the EQ of Onision here? Because honestly, he is out of his own mind and out of our understanding.
We would, make jokes about us being together, but he would send me like pictures of like him without on. Basically, Kai was taking selfies and he sent me a few of the selfies, and one of them, like his entire was in the picture. There was at least one picture that I had sent of me when I was 15, to Kai.
Boom! He's sharing his own half-nude pictures and manipulating the underage girls to share their pictures too is a huge crime. And Onision has been doing this since ages. He's been doing it publicly on his YouTube channel under the tag of health and fitness. But honestly, the names of the videos are extremely racist and show the real side of Onision and his thoughts towards women in general. Take this one, for example, a video titled Ugly to Pretty Bodies. And if you take a closer look at the thumbnail, it's painfully clear the girl has slightly bigger thighs and has gained a few kilos. So in Onision's twisted world, more weight is equal to less beauty? Insane. And here's the ironic punchline. He slapped a tag over it saying plus body image in bold with a red circle around it, as if he's promoting self-love. How darkly hilarious and painfully hypocritical can it get? In another video titled Rate Me from 1 to 10, we see Onision doing what he does best, judging young girls based on their looks. The most disturbing part, he's managed to manipulate countless girls into sending him their photos, just so he can rate their bodies publicly. That's not just toxic, it's exploitative. What he understood all too well is that many girls, especially teens, are deeply self-conscious about how they look. And he used that insecurity as a tool, one he sharpened and weaponized for views, ego, and control. Let's be clear, beauty is not a number, and no one, especially not someone like Onision, gets to define your worth based on your body. Fitness should be about health and strength, not size or shape. Every body type can be fit, powerful, and beautiful if it's loved and cared for properly. And here we go again. This one's the actual title of an Onision video. Fat. How fat is too fat for a girl to be? Seriously, who the hell are you to decide that, Onision? A girl can be fat, slim, muscular, soft, square, triangle, or whatever she damn well wants to be. Her body isn't up for public judgment, especially not from someone like you, who thrives on shaming and provoking for views. But here's the deeper issue. When girls are still discovering their worth, still unsure of their own strength, they become vulnerable to predators like him. And sadly, some internalize the hate, allowing themselves to be judged and torn down publicly just for existing outside his twisted ideals. This isn't just toxic content, it's emotional sabotage packed as opinion, and it's dangerous. Let's take a sneak peek into Sarah's story with Onision in brief.
How did you go from that to, at the age of 16, living with them?
So we had been friends since I was 14. I was going through a lot, and we had joked about me living there, but one night after some really not so great stuff went down, I was outside crying, texting my best friend, Kai, and he said that he was seriously going to talk to Greg about me living there. And at first I was just shocked. Like, I sat there like, what do you mean? And I was like, wait, really? And he was like, yeah, it hurts to say this, but I feel like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I think anyone watching this definitely probably feels the same, that there's really no reason to move a teenager in with you or to send the kind of messages they sent, and then conveniently, coincidentally, be with you after you turn 18.
And I mean, we had already had romantic conversations and talks when I was 15. And I know that in the video that he posted online, I basically was like, oh, nothing is going on, guys. But he wanted me to make that video, and he like really pressured me into making it, and I really didn't want to. I have bloopers from it of me literally like having like a mental breakdown, like sobbing because I was just so overwhelmed.
Oh my God.
It's only like 40 seconds long because he literally gave me like a list of things to say, and I just said them, and I just like bullet points, didn't like tell me exactly what to say, but like bullet points of what to like speak about. So I just spoke about whatever he wanted me to, and then I just like stopped it. I didn't want.
So Greg, better known as Onision, and Kai invited Sarah to live with them while he was still a teenager, barely 14 years old. And from there, the rest is history. Dark, disturbing history. Sarah was manipulated emotionally and, according to her own words in interviews, forced to record videos reciting statements that Onision and Kai pressured her to say on camera. There was no real consent, no protection, and no care for her well-being. The entire situation was a chaotic, damaging mess for Sarah. It reached a point where Sarah suffered a mental breakdown, overwhelmed by the emotional and psychological toll. Her mental health deteriorated rapidly, making it even harder to resist or cope with the control and manipulation Onision exerted over her. But the most important point to understand here is the predatory timing. When Sarah was invited to live with them, she was already in a vulnerable and emotionally fragile state. She was battling personal issues, and instead of offering genuine help, Onision and Kai took advantage of her pain, manipulating her when she was least able to protect herself. It's a textbook example of emotional exploitation under the guise of friendship and support.
Geez, that's so controlling, right? Like, to have this adult move you in and then force you to go on camera and explain how nothing inappropriate is going on. That just seems really messed up.
Well, and also what would hurt me a lot is like having to watch him say like, oh, we don't even hug Sarah, we don't even do this or that, and it's like I'm sitting there like 16 watching this, and I'm just like, but yes you do, like you're sitting here and you're blatantly lying, and I can't say anything because I don't want to get you in trouble.
Tell me a little bit about the NDA that you signed. You told me off camera that you signed an NDA the morning after you were with them for the first time.
Yeah. He and Kai decided that everyone in their life needed to sign an NDA and that I was no exception.
It's absolutely disgusting and terrifying how some individuals like Onision have brought underage girls into their homes under the guise of friendship or mentorship, only to groom, exploit, and manipulate them into submission. Grooming young girls to the point where they feel ready to with your abuser is not just manipulative, it's criminal and horrifying. But amidst the darkness, there is strength. The comments section is rightfully filled with admiration for Sarah, who had the courage to come forward and share her truth. It takes incredible bravery to sit in front of a camera and speak about one's experiences with disrespect, abuse, and trauma. Sarah, like many other survivors, has become a voice of power for those who've been silenced for far too long. Her story is more than just a testimony, it's a lesson. A lesson for young girls who may not yet understand their worth, or who may be navigating the confusing space between trust and manipulation. Sarah's voice has sparked awareness, helped others recognize red flags, and most importantly, remind young girls that sacrificing your dignity is never the cost of love or attention. She didn't just survive, she's now helping others survive too. The comments under the interview video are the best here. And one of them literally says, "It is embarrassing to think that I used to be a fan of Onision. Anyone who still supports him needs to wake up." This is such a powerful journey of being a hardcore fan of someone and gradually not only disliking but hating them. But Onision deserves every bit of it, doesn't he? Let's jump back to Shiloh's story where we left off. Let's see Shiloh's parents' reaction when they heard of her living with Onision, a 10-year-older guy in another state.
Now, how was your mom with this?
Unfortunately, at this time, because I had the career that I had, I was in a lot more control than I should have been able to be in. And we went through a very bad fallout. I had told her that I didn't want to speak to her because I thought she was responsible for calling the police and PA. And also, he had really kind of pushed me into not speaking to her anymore because of how she didn't approve of what was going on. And so I told her to leave. I'll never not regret that. But I told her to leave, and my management at the time got me an apartment that was a studio in Toronto. I, to be honest, never stayed at it. I was with Greg the entire time.
So the bond between Shiloh and her mother slowly destructed because Shiloh's mom had called the police to check on her, just to see if she was all right. But then, considering the fact that Shiloh was young, underage, and too immature to understand what her mother was trying to do, she was too courageous and madly in love with Onision. But one can notice the depth of regret and sadness in Shiloh's eyes while she was explaining the whole incident with her mom. Onision ruined the relationship.
So you were making pretty good money as a kid.
Oh, yes. I was in a position of paying all of our bills at the time.
Was Greg making any money at all? Meaning Onision, Greg?
Oh, yeah.
So the two of you together, you were comfortable.
Well, I mean, it's a different story, but at the time I didn't have the same type of access to my money as I would now. I wasn't under a very good situation in my career when it came to management and such. But between the two of us, we were worth a lot, yes.
When did the relationship go from, okay, this is cool, I'm into him, to he's controlling me, he's manipulating me, he's coercing me?
So before this, I had dealt with a boyfriend that had schizophrenia. And so some of the things that happened with Greg, it didn't take me back as much as I feel like it should have. But the first incident, which was in Toronto, between January and April, I found photos of his ex-wife's sister.
You had what kind of photos on? Of his ex-wife's sister.
Yes, but she had those, was doing that privately at the time, and he had those photos on his computer.
So Onision was cheating on his ex-wife not only with Shiloh, but allegedly with his ex-wife's sister as well. How else did he end up with photos of her? Either she shared them directly, suggesting a highly inappropriate relationship, or worse, he secretly captured those images without her knowledge, possibly using hidden cameras. That alone is a severe violation of privacy and consent. And when Shiloh confronted him, he casually dismissed it by saying, "All boys do that." Let's be clear, not all boys are predators. Not all boys violate trust and manipulate young girls. That kind of justification is not only wrong, it's dangerous. It minimizes abuse and shifts the blame away from the perpetrator. And the horror didn't stop there. But Onision didn't. He normalized the abuse. He twisted it into something that seemed acceptable, something that seemed like love. But it wasn't love, it was controlled, it was grooming. And it was the start of controlling and dominating. So Onision made it look normal and generalized it by saying everyone does it, and then wrongly educating Shiloh with the ugliest stuff. That was the start of her being controlled by him.
Personal relationship, your physical relationship with him intensified during this time?
It was all the time. It was from the very beginning. We had about 8 times a day sometimes. I was getting frequent, and I thought that was normal too. This was my first life per se, so I just thought this is what's normal. This is how adults do things.
Education plays a big role in a teenager's life. Adolescents go through intense hormonal changes and emotional turbulence. They're often searching for love, care, validation, and sometimes exploring things. Without proper guidance, they can easily fall into dangerous situations where people misuse and manipulate them. When there's no clear understanding of boundaries, of consent, of what's healthy and what's harmful, they begin to normalize. And that's when everything abnormal becomes normal. Take, for instance, a 17-year-old girl, already vulnerable, struggling with boyfriend issues, isolated from family and friends, thrown into a creative world with no boundaries, and chasing a high-stakes career. Someone like this becomes easy prey for a manipulative adult someone who cloaks cruelty with affection, who disguises domination as love. That's exactly what happened to Shiloh. No amount of time, intelligence, or money can protect you if you lack security within yourself, or if no one has ever taught you how to say no, or that you can. Vulnerable girls, even those who appear strong, are often the most fragile and faced with emotionally manipulative men who present themselves as soft boys but turn out to be predators. Looking at Shiloh's story with a mature, informed lens, it becomes painfully clear. What she endured wasn't just control. It was rape, repeated, daily, violent, draining, depressing. And still, she came back, on camera, stronger. Not everyone makes it back like Shiloh or Sarah did.
I think both. Not love, but definitely lust and control. I don't think he has a very good meter of controlling himself around a person.
Did he hurt you?
He was very aggressive, calling me the B word, calling me very aggressive, very aggressive.
Looking back, was there anything romantic at all about this, or was it him just using you and what?
I don't think that he has those feelings. I think I did. For me, where I was and being convinced that he was the person that I was supposed to be with and such, I was giving real compassion. But what he was, no. I'm 26 now, and I know I'm not very old, but I have been in stable relationships at this point, and there's nothing normal about what he was doing. There was no, hey, sweetie, can we sit down and talk about what you like and what I like? It was, this is what he does, and you go with it.
To be physically controlling a teenager like that? It's not just disturbing, it's exhausting to even imagine. It's scary, overwhelming. And the worst part is it's real, it happened. A healthy relationship is built on consent, respect, compassion, and care, the basics. Shiloh had none of that. She lost more than just a relationship. She lost her sense of safety, her career momentum, and some of the most crucial years of her life. Let this be an educational moment for every young girl watching. Please learn from the stories of others. Build yourself up so no one can tear you down. Be strong enough to recognize the red flags and walk away. Be strong enough to speak up. In today's digital world, it takes immense courage to come forward, to sit in front of a camera and share your story with the entire world watching. But that bravery can become your power. Use this digital space in your favor. Use it to spread truth, your lessons, and your message so others can recognize their own worth and get out before it's too late. To put it simply, think of how beauty influencers operate. They try products, and if they love them, they promote them. If the product is harmful or disappointing, they say it out loud and clear. They're honest, they're transparent, they protect their audience. Why shouldn't we be just as honest about our life experiences? If something hurts you, say it. If someone manipulated you, name it. Your story might be the spark someone else needs to recognize, to speak up, and to finally walk away. Because somewhere out there, someone's waiting desperately for a voice like yours. Someone who needs to know that they're not alone, and that it's not their fault. Let's see how subtly Onision played with Shiloh's career now.
Did he ask you, or did he try to derail your career?
He brought me as far away from it as he could.
In what way? How did he do this?
Well, we moved to Seattle first. We moved to Seattle the day before I turned 18. We were in the hotel waiting. Morning I turned 18, we were off to Seattle. And so that took me away from all of my network, really. As much as I can find my network in Seattle or Los Angeles or New York or wherever I am, it took me away from my management, my record label, my agents, everything, my security.
Did he try to isolate you?
Yeah, my phone wasn't my phone anymore. It was the phone that he got me, or else I'd have to deal with him saying that it was weird or that we were way too close. And I went on 2 writing trips at that time. One of them he came along on, and one of them he didn't. And he made those hard the entire time. He made those difficult. Slowly,
What did he do on those trips, and what were you supposed to be doing on those trips?
I was writing for other people at that time, whilst also doing my own project. So essentially ghostwriting, I guess. He just realized everything.
Was there anything about this relationship where you did things other than bow to his wishes? Did you guys go to movies? Did you go on hang out in the studio while you sang or wrote music or performed? Did he encourage you to be the best you could be in your profession?
He encouraged me to do a lot of YouTube videos with him. But
it was all about promoting Onision.
Yeah, essentially. I can't say that he was ever like, stop doing music, but he made it so that I couldn't. So I guess that's a bigger win. He gave me not much of a choice. Eventually I was not able to contact my management. I got dropped from my management.
I'm guessing that leads me to my next question. At some point, the management's going to say, "We're heads not in the game here."
Yeah, she's not.
Obviously, there's or control or something. We try to get her attention. We can't. Is that what happened?
Essentially. But I mean, it was a blessing in disguise, but that's a whole other story. But it was essentially that they dropped off from me because I wasn't providing. I wasn't giving out any work at all.
So you're what, 18, and suddenly you're washed up?
Yeah, I went from making thousands in my 3-month quarter that would come out to seeing it go to like $300.
You would tour. You were in concerts with other artists.
I was on the radio.
You're on the radio. You had record deals.
Yeah.
Now you're just with Onision.
Then I was just with him at his house, recording with him, time, everything. And I mean, that house, I'm not sure if anybody's aware of this, but when I got there, there was nothing but a couch in the living room and a green screen with a bunch of lighting. The heating was rarely turned on. The kitchen was always an absolute disaster from the videos that he would do with food and such like that. There was a bed on the floor for a bedroom with a TV in there, and gaming systems. And then his office was like decked out with all of the cool stuff that he liked.
Onision never explicitly told Shiloh to stop creating music. He didn't physically drag her away from her career or force her to abandon her passion. But he kinda did, subtly, strategically, quietly. It was manipulation at its most insidious. He didn't shut her down creatively, he redirected it. He allowed her to think, write, and create, but only within the limits that benefited him. He kept her brain active so he could use it. He kept her voice alive so he could steal it. As we know from Shiloh herself, she was effectively a ghostwriter, contributing ideas, scripts, and creative material without ever receiving credit. Not once. She helped shape content that fueled his image and his career, while her own artistry was buried under his name. So the question is, did Onision misuse her body and her mind for his own gain? The answer is almost certainly yes. There is a wide, glaring possibility that he didn't just exploit her. He exploited her intelligence, her creative talent, and her emotional energy, all under the guise of being a partner. That's the cruel genius of manipulation like him. You don't realize you've been used until it's all gone. Your career, your voice, your identity, and worst of all, he walks away with the credit.
There was a point in time in which we were having and afterwards he had taken me into the shower, and can't remember how it came about, but he had told me that he was into small-bodied Asian women and that wasn't me, and that he couldn't pick me up while we were being, so I had to lose weight, that I was clinically obese for my height. I'm 5 foot, and I think I was like 135 pounds. And so I had never felt that way.
So let's talk about something disturbing that Shiloh herself just confessed. There was a point in her relationship with Onision where he literally forced her to lose weight. Why? Because he was into thinner women. Because according to his twisted standards, she was suddenly too heavy to be attractive. He even told her he couldn't physically lift her, as if that was somehow her problem to fix. Now to everyone in the comments who keeps saying, Onision supports all body types. He encourages girls to love themselves as they are. Did you not hear what his then-girlfriend, used, isolated, and exploited, just said out loud? He didn't promote self-love. He promoted his own unrealistic, degrading standards, and used them to control her body, her self-worth, and her mental health. And still people go to his channel, watch those videos where he openly judges women's bodies and calls it entertainment. Look, what you watch is your personal choice. No one's here to dictate your YouTube habits. But what we are asking is this. Think. Pause before you click. Ask yourself, what am I feeding my brain? Is this content helping anyone? Or is it hurting people who've already been hurt enough? Don't give your views, your shares, your subscriptions to someone who used a young girl's body, mind, and spirit to build his online persona while silencing her behind the scenes. You have power as a viewer, so use it. Choose not to support abusive creators, report harmful content, and help create a safer digital space for survivors like Shiloh who are finally brave enough to tell the truth. But hey, here's a hard fact. In the case of Onision, Shiloh isn't the only one. He fires every girl he sees. Every girl, in fact, all women in his eyes deserve no respect. Watch this.
In living with primarily women the majority of my life, I've noticed them experience quite a few pains that I as a male have no comprehension of.
So here he is, mocking women, imitating them in the most degrading, tone-deaf way possible, pretending as if all women do is just cry, like that's their entire emotional range. Really? Let's be real. Women go through complex, deeply human experiences. Menstruation, pregnancy, menopause, hormonal changes, and yes, they're emotional at times. But that doesn't make them weak. It makes them strong, resilient, and in touch with parts of life Onision clearly doesn't have the range or respect to understand. Frankly, the fact that he made those videos is proof he lost his dignity long before he lost relevance. When you have a massive platform and a loyal fan base that hangs on your every word, you carry responsibility, whether you like it or not. You're not just posting, brushing it off as just humor. Ask yourself, who is the joke really on? And who is being harmed by it? You don't have to support creators who mock, exploit, and belittle others for clicks. You can choose to unsubscribe. You can choose not to watch. You can choose to support content that respects people instead of humiliating them, because silence is support, and what you watch is what you endorse. Coming back to Shiloh's story, Chris Hansen, for interviewing and backing Shiloh publicly in his channel, had a massive audience. But Onision, on the other hand, went to the court next day to obtain restraining order against Chris Hansen, but got rejected.
He went to court filing his own motion for some sort of restraining order, and it was dismissed. It was, is one of the goofiest things I've ever seen. And
nobody, especially the legal authorities, would overlook what Onision has been doing for so long. So clearly that was supposed to happen. Let's talk about a video that Onision proudly posted on his channel titled 10 Things I Hate About Being a Woman, Girl Life. First of all, he's not a woman. He doesn't get to speak for women, he doesn't get to mock their lived experiences, and he certainly has no authority to make a parody out of what it means to exist in a female body. He's not even behaving like a sensible man. He comes across more like a cruel caricature of a human being, someone completely void of empathy, compassion, or basic respect. In that video, he doesn't just crack a few harmless jokes, he systematically tears women down. He mocks them for their skin color, their makeup choices, their body types, their professions, even their ambitions. And somehow he passes it off as humor or satire. But let's be honest, there's nothing funny about it. It's not comedy, it's misogyny. It's not commentary, it's cruelty. And it's exhausting. Because women have had to put up with this kind of behavior for far too long, both offline and online. What makes it worse is that Onision does all of this with a platform, his influence, with followers who watch, laugh, and normalize this content. That's why it's so important to call it out. Because when we ignore this kind of content, we validate it. When we watch it, we give it power. And when we stay silent, we allow it to grow. This isn't just bad taste, it's part of a bigger problem, and it's up to us to stop feeding it. Yes, it is completely insane and downright defaming. A lot of you must be wondering the same thing. Why hasn't this video been banned yet by YouTube? And honestly, it's a valid question. Because let's face it, almost every single piece of content Onision has ever uploaded is not just useless, it's toxic. His entire online presence is built on mockery, manipulation, and harm. His channel shouldn't just be flagged, it should be banned, period. But unfortunately, here we are in 2025 and his account still exists. That, in itself, is one of the saddest and most frustrating realities of the digital world today. The fact that someone with such a long, well-documented history of exploitation and misogyny still has a platform is not just disappointing, it's dangerous. And it's a reminder that until platforms like YouTube start holding creators like him truly accountable, it's up to us, the audience, to speak up, report what's harmful, and refuse to give views to content that thrives on hurting others. There are also sayings that he used to work at McDonald's, and he was fired from there. Another news was him being an ex-Air Force officer. It said that Onision served as an Air Force officer in the US, but we all know what kind of character he really is. So he definitely must have done something super shady and creepy in the Air Force, which would have forced the authorities to throw Onision out of the forces. If we take a close look at the logo of his channel, it also somewhat looks like an army man. The creepiness of Onision was always at its peak. Whatever he did to the girls around him was, and is, punishable. Here is the last words of Shiloh from her interview.
Sense to you?
I mean, I don't know if you can see the smoke coming out of my ears, but up here, everything is, those gears are grinding. I've never been able to understand how, whatever kind of dreamland he's living in. Because he speaks on subjects that he doesn't know anything about, in a way that he feels is intelligent. And it really just continuously makes him look like an idiot, for lack of a better term. And it's so in view. Every single thing that he has done is documented. When him and I broke up the last time, he had tried to get us on Judge Judy. Judge Judy. He tried to get us on Judge Judy, and they declined it because I was a Canadian citizen. But that's just to show how much of a big joke this is to him. I was in Canada having an emergency DNC of his past baby, and he was busy trying to get us on Judge Judy. For it.
Shiloh has finally cleared the whole mess, and with her brave testimony, the fog in our heads has lifted too. She brought us clarity. And with that clarity comes the undeniable truth. Onision is not some intelligent grown man. He's a delusional fool who hides behind fake wisdom and crocodile tears, crying for custody of his children while failing to act like a father when his own child fell from a rooftop and was seriously injured. He's the same man who shamelessly judges women on his YouTube channel, urging them to lose weight, all while publicly admitting his preference for thin, underage Asian girls. Let that sink in. Onision went a step further by creating his own community, claiming he doesn't believe in or belong to any religion, yet insists that his followers are somehow more enlightened. But in reality, this community is nothing more than a gathering of enablers, a club of and criminals hiding behind a false sense of superiority. Onision has a well-documented history of assaulting, manipulating, and emotionally breaking down young underage teen girls until they're so hollowed out that their spirit is gone and their mental health is in shambles. At this point, Onision isn't just a meme, it's an adjective, a term that defines cruelty, control, and exploitation, a word that captures everything a monster can be. What do you think about Onision? Do you believe someone like him still deserves to have a YouTube channel? Don't you think it's long overdue for him to face real consequences and be held accountable, maybe even behind bars where he belongs? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And please share this video with every single person you think should know the truth, because monsters like this are still walking freely among us, hiding in plain sight and causing real harm. If you believe in standing with survivors and spreading awareness, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time we release a new video. Until then, take care, stay safe, and stay tuned for the next one. You won't want to miss it.